All right, welcome everyone. My name is Jillene Joseph, and we are coming live. We're starting week 11 of our Native Wellness Power Hours. I can't even believe that. And today, our Power Hour is called Healing from Racism. And we had a little bit of switch up in our schedule yesterday, and had to do some switching around. And I just thought, you know what, we need to do a session today and just acknowledge what's happening in our country and just to help each other, come together in a good way and to help each other move through this in a good way. That's what we do at the Native Wellness Institute. And so that's what today is about, just healing from racism. And the three of us here are gonna visit and just share some of our thoughts and feelings and share some solutions and what we do to take care of ourselves. And before we do our opening, and while people are joining us here, the Native Wellness Institute is a national nonprofit organization. We'd like to say that we're a social profit because the things that we do benefit our people and they benefit society. And way back in March, when the pandemic was first starting, we gathered and talked about what we wanted our response to be to this pandemic. And we brainstormed and we came up with this idea of offering daily, 7 days a week, 1 hour programming to help uplift our people, to provide information, opportunities for healing through workshops and stories and song. So this is what we've been doing for 10 weeks now, starting our 11th week. And we've had many sponsors and supporters. And this week, we want to give thanks to the Indian Collective for their support and sponsorship. And we want to give thanks to each of you for joining in. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, so we're starting a few minutes late this morning. But we appreciate you tuning in. And I'm going to turn it over to Gene, and he's just going to start us out in a good way this afternoon. Gene?
Oh, thank you, Jillene. My name is Tagaban. I'm with the Native Wellness Institute, and I just want to welcome everybody in, and thank you so much. And as we're about to go on here, oftentimes when we do things, a ceremony or whatever it is, a dance, we go into it with a prayer or a song, preparing our spirit. And what we're about to talk about and discuss can be really jarring to our spirit, to our beingness. And so I'm going to sing this song, and it's just to prepare our spirit for what we're about to do. And so as I sing this song, just to allow yourself just to take it in and to take care of your spirit and prepare it, because your spirit is so strong. Our spirit is so strong, and it's our flesh and our humanness that falter. And so the song here is just to prepare our spirit in a good way. So So thank you, Gunachish. Thank you for that. And And again, how do we prepare our spirits? And what do we need to do? Oftentimes too, it's just I just need to sing, or I need to go outside. What do we need to do to take care of our spirits? Oftentimes we think about what we need to do to take care of ourselves physically, or our minds, or even our emotions. But what are we doing to take care of our spirit? And really take a look at that. Really take a look at that. So, good night, Jish. Thank you, Jillene.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane, for that beautiful song. So today we're here to show solidarity to our Black brothers and sisters, to the Black Lives Matters movement. And I'm getting emotional too, because I'm feeling too what everybody else is feeling. And today we stand in solidarity with the Native community in Minneapolis. I've heard from several of my friends, and I've reached out to several of my friends there, and one of them said it's a disaster, and our Indian medicines are being tested, is what she told me. And we want you all to know that we stand in solidarity with you, with the community there in Minneapolis, and really all of our communities around the country. And that's what today is. We want to stand in solidarity and support. We know that this is, more than just about the recent murders. And what I was sharing with someone is like, I'm watching 500 years of racism and oppression, explode across this country, and we're all feeling it. And today is about, uplifting our people. And we're not here to debate, the protests or the riots. We're not here to do that. Like, we're here to talk about how together we can move through this in a good way. That's what today is about. That's what the Native Wellness Institute is about. Our mission is to keep the teachings of our ancestors alive. And we know that we have the tools and the resources to move through this in a good way. And, I always say that with every upset comes a new setup. And I'm already looking forward to the new setup and how I can contribute to that new setup. And I want to thank both of you for joining us. And I know Josh couldn't be here today. And Tomas will be filling in for him any minute. He should be joining us. But I want to thank you both for, the last minute coming on and helping us move through this. So I'm just going to ask a few questions. And Shalene, I'll start with you first. So, I know that you've been watching this go down on TV and social media and talking to your friends. And when you watch and hear and listen, how are you feeling, watching all this go down?
Just real quick. Hello, everybody. My name is Shalene. I think, or just a little more introduction. Jillene is my mother. We're from Fort Belknap, Montana. On my dad's side, I'm Khoikhon Athabaskan from Tanana, Alaska. It's tough, right? It's not an isolated incident. I think we see people's reactions and response to 500 years of oppression, right? And I watch it and I see social media and checking in on friends, and it hurts in the same way that this is a time for us to be there for the Black community. It's our opportunity to stand alongside and for us to be allies for their community, and to not make this about anything other than that, about moving through this in a good way. Because I think far often it's a norm to make it, to want to feel involved. And I don't think that that's what's necessary. Is we need to put focus on the Black community and how we can really change the so-called justice system. I think, I've been really trying to think in these last couple of days of what parts can I play? And I've texted the numbers and I've signed the petitions and I've sent the emails and made the calls. I think there's so much that we can do, but it's hard to be like, well, what more can I do? And I think conversations is a big piece. And I find myself getting emotional just because, it's hurtful to see people who don't understand, nor do they want to. I think that's the hurtful piece of the amount of people, even in my life, who I assumed were friends or assumed got it, make comments that are really hurtful to community in general, or who, and it's not out of judgment. It's just out of sadness and in hopes that maybe one day they will have these types of conversations and they will be open to talking about racism and systems and oppression. They will be open to finding new ways of uplifting the community. I think, watching buildings burn, there's a part of me that's, what peaceful protests didn't work necessarily. And I get it that not all of the destruction is coming from the people who are taking a stand, that there's others coming in to make it look like it's worse than it is, right? I understand that too. I don't know, I think there's a lot of feelings to try and navigate and to sit with, and I think it's like almost so much that, I've been up for sleeping 2 hours last night and 3 hours the night before, because I can't turn it off, in the same way that, not to center our community, but this is, Native people know what colonialism is. Native people know the struggle, and with that knowledge, we can now stand alongside the Black Lives Matter movement, in the same way that we had Black relatives stand alongside us during Standing Rock. And there's so many moments where we have parallels that, this is the time. And this is also the time where we need to do the work on ourselves, to know what our own prejudices are, to know how systematic racism, affects our communities that we live in, and how we can, better have these conversations with our friends that may not be people of color. I think that's a huge one. And I just, I send nothing but my love and gratitude for the people on the ground and for the people who are really doing the work. And and it's just really, it's an interesting time. Yeah.
Thanks, Shalene. And for those of you that don't know, Shalene is also our producer on the Power Hours. So thank you, Shalene. How about you, Jean?
So, how am I feeling about all this? I had to grab my feather, because I'm feeling angry, frustrated, voiceless at times, mad, saddened, just pissed off. I'm feeling powerful. I'm feeling just all these things, man. And I'm feeling all these emotions, and I'm looking like this. And there's a part of me that I don't even know how I feel. There's a part of me that just wants to scream, and just because I feel the hurt. I feel it. Our people's been through this. I wonder how many. I always say this: how many relatives would I have if they didn't die on the Trail of Tears? They were forcefully taken from their land. They were forcefully taken from their land, and they didn't die on the Trail of Tears. How many relatives would I have? And those same relatives, when those slaves would run away and escape. Those same relatives that I had would take them in into their own people, into their own tribes, and so it's like that. So our black brothers and sisters, it's like I just want to we're just be there and hold them. In the spirit, I am holding them. And so how am I feeling? I'm just like feeling just this array of emotion, and and just right before I came on, I had to take a shower. Just let that water just cleanse me and just come down on me, because I needed that, and so this is how I'm feeling right now, just like this eagle feather, just like just kind of just busted up a little bit. My feathers are ruffled, and that's how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling, and but and as our people, we're resilient. We're resilient, and the people too are just our black brothers and sisters. We're resilient, and together, I just know together we're gonna come. We're gonna work it out. Together we could do this. We could do this, and it's yeah. That's how I feel. When you first asked, even before we went on live here, you asked me how I felt, and I was like, I feel everything, so many things, and it's like a deep, soulful, visceral feeling that's deep down inside. That that only song, dance, and ceremony can like almost take care of. That can that heal that, and so I'm feeling powerful. I'm feeling hurt, and I said all those things, and so it's but I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad that we can like discuss this and talk about this, and and bring this out to people, because I know a lot of people are just feeling the same way that I am, the same way you are, the same way Shalene, that you are, and so it's so Gunachish for asking me last night to be on.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. Thank you both for sharing. We, as Indigenous people, we do have a long history of relationships and making relatives with our Black brothers and sisters. And it does go all the way back to the time of slavery. And many of our tribal people helped Black people escape and hid them. And because of that, many of our people have intermarried into the Black community. And so we have many Indigenous people that also identify as being Black. And I know that because of the lasting impacts of trauma, we also have, oppression and lateral oppression. And I think even our own racial healing is important too. And so today, as we stand in solidarity with the Black community, and as we stand in solidarity with the community in Minneapolis and the other cities that are grieving and to move through this, and I know this is like happening right now in real time, and I know both of you have a profound understanding of the impacts of historical and intergenerational trauma. Hey, welcome, Tomas.
Hi. Tomas.
Glad you made it. I know that all of us on here have a profound understanding of the lasting impacts of historical and intergenerational trauma. And I know that each of you on here also have a profound understanding of historical and intergenerational wisdom. And I know that, all of us are going to continue to just go through these emotions over and over, and we're going to feel good and powerful, and then we're going to feel, angry, and then we're going to feel, mad and hurt, and that whole thing. And we know that that's what in part, helps us to move forward. So what are you doing for your own well-being? Like, what are you doing to help move through all of this? And Tomas, I know you just joined us, and I'll just like turn to you first. You want to just introduce yourself first and tell us a little bit about yourself, and what are you feeling and how are you moving through this?
Keshe, hello, Cuiraba. My name is Tomas Carmelo Amaya. I am Yoeme and Ashmi on my mom's side, and Raramuri on my dad's side. I am a multidisciplinary artist, and I currently live in Phoenix, Arizona, which is occupied Occam territory. And man, I feel like as a person that's raised with indigenous teachings, our connection to creation and to all of creation is so special, and our ability to empathize with, you know, brothers and sisters that might not always look like us is stronger because of those teachings. And it's just because we know we are truly family. And so that in and of itself informs and is at the center of what I say as an artist. And I think being an artist makes it even more intense. So for me, it has been very infuriating. It's been hard to process. A little bit of background, where I grew up in Phoenix, in West Phoenix, half of our block was Black households, and it's changed a little bit since. My parents are still there in that particular block, but I mean, I always felt that connection. And I talked to several people when I talk about my early part of life, and I tell them that, you know, my first best friend was an 80-year-old Black man. And that's because he was married, and he loved his wife, and they would take care of the plants in their front yard, and he would go out in his overalls, and they were just this beautiful couple that lived across the street. Well, when she passed away, he got really sad, so sad, and his name's Mr. Mitchell. And my mom would send me over to give him food, you know, to help uplift his spirit. And she'll send me with tortillas and tamales, and she would walk me over there, and I was about 4 years old, and she'd hang around for a while, but she saw I would be talking to Mr. Mitchell for a long time, and we'd just be poking at the dirt and looking at the birds, and she's like, you know what, I'll be back for you. And I'd spend like hours with him, and I just kind of, like, you know, built that connection. And I remember he got really sick, and he went to a nursing home. And when I walked into the room, he looked over to the side, and he had this big smile. And on his cheek, just one tear came down. He smiled, and he said, and he had a little bit of dementia, but he said, my boy came to see me all the way in Kansas. And just the way we care for each other and show up for each other throughout life. You know, the way we do it for our Native communities, I know we do it for those, for everybody, you know, Native, non-Native, all our relations, how we show up, that's really important.
Uh-huh.
So as an artist, I want to express a lot, but as Shay says, I also understand what it means to be a guest and a relative, and to know, you know, what can I do to stand right beside you? What can I do to amplify your voice? You know, yes, I'm an artist. Yes, I have things that I want to say, but I want to make sure that I am being a good relative to you, that I am helping you process the grief, that I am providing a space for you to heal yourself and for your community to heal. You know, so even though it's this flood of emotion, you know, a lot of our teachings make us aware of there's a time and a place. So I'm just really inspired, and I need to say this from our community, a Native country, just how many people are being mobilized to donate and where to donate, and even when to call in things that are problematic and say, you know what, yeah, we heard some things about this organization or this place, maybe not there. Let's put our resources over here. I think that's really important, that we keep that that clarity of mind, that lucidness, that maybe is really, really hard for our Black relatives right now. There's a lot going on. So given that we are able to mobilize in this way and not and not be as directly affected right now for the instance that's happening right now, how can we step up? How can we show up and offer all our medicines and all our gifts? So those are a few thoughts right there.
Awesome. Thank you, Tomas. Thank you.
Eloquent. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm kind of reading some of the comments of people coming in, and people. This is exactly why we wanted to do this, so we can come together virtually. Here we are in the middle of this historic with this virus, and we wanted to provide space, safe space to come together in a good way and connect virtually and to validate each other's feelings. And I already feel like this rush of healing through my own body. So, thank you all for sharing. And I know that there's people out there, there's parents out there that are struggling of, what do they tell their children? How what can they say? So what guidance could you each offer the young people that are out there that might be tuning in today, or that might watch this later? Like, what kind of guidance to help them who might be feeling the same thing that we're feeling, this rage and anger and confusion and fear? What kind of guidance could you offer? Shalene, do you want to share first?
Excuse me. Yeah. Going along kind of like what Tomas was saying, it's the wanting to stand alongside community, and in the right way. I've been hearing a lot of people ask, well, what can we do? And without putting the work on anyone else's shoulders or asking others to educate you, because that's not the Black community's job, is to educate you. There's resources. There's there's the internet, Google. Look up the things that you need to know, but also look internally. What is your own racial identity, and explore that. And what does that mean to you? Additionally, what were you taught and what were you not taught about white supremacy and racism or prejudice, and knowing what that means, and knowing, what it means to be, whether it's a person of color in this world or a non-person of color. What does that mean for you? Looking even inwards and looking at your own internalized racism. What are the things that you were socially taught? There's all of these ways that we can come at or towards these types of conversations and dealing with our own trauma, right? And some of it can be really hard. Our parents do the best that they can, but they teach us what they've been taught. And sometimes it's from a generation of just pure hurt. Sometimes it's from, not the best of places. And that can be the hardest thing, is to unlearn. But what are those things that you need to unlearn? What is community asking you to unlearn? And really listen and not say, not place yourself in the middle, or not place anyone else in the middle but the Black community right now. Not saying, well, not all cops are bad. We understand that, but it's not about that. Really giving focus to what's important here. And also looking at, what are your own thoughts and feelings? I think that's going to be key in this, is that if you yourself don't understand, right? Because there's so many emotions. I go from pure anger and almost wanting to be out there because it's just you don't know what else to do, to taking a step back and understanding that there's a history of racism. This isn't new. This isn't something that just randomly popped up because one cop killed a Black man, right? And George Floyd and every, all the George Floyds in the world, right? Like there are so many ways that we can create understanding about what oppression is. Do you know what that means? And then also, what is our role? How do we continue with this system? What are the ways that we can help uplift people of color voices, to uplift Black voices, to uplift community? And then, there's just so many things that we can do, like elevate our race consciousness, to understand, Thosh Collins, who we all know works with us, my brother. One of the things that I'll never forget, which is funny coming from me, is that he talks about, or he told me once, and I only heard it once, and that's all it took, was that compassion is consciousness. That to be aware is to be compassionate. And for those of you who are really struggling with being angry at certain people, we can still, come at it with compassion and try and find a way to help others understand. And I know that's not our jobs either, but if we really want to do a part, we can help educate so that their community doesn't have to do all of the work, right? We can be the aware people, right? And call people in to do that as well. We can be the positive influence to looking at what these systems are and understanding the relationship of racism or prejudice and identifying when it's happening, even if it's as simple as microaggressions, being able to understand what those are and when we can speak up, especially for those moments where not necessarily that we have to be the people always on the watch, but it can be exhausting hearing microaggressions all the time. And if you hear them against somebody else, that can be our opportunity to course correct that behavior. I feel like there's a lot of things that we allow in our own spaces, even with our friends or groups that we may sit in, and it can be hard to say something because that's not the norm. But I think what is being taught here, and I'll end soon because I realize I'm rambling, but I think one of the things that we should be really thinking about is that in this pandemic, we should be learning. We should be creating understandings of how we can best end these ongoing cycles. And that starts with us, because individuals make community. Like reevaluating and acknowledging your own healing around race and what that means for you, and that journey, and being able to be okay with saying I might be wrong. I might have some prejudice ideologies that I need to really consider and reevaluate, and how can I be a better ally, and acknowledging the emotional, basically, labor that this is all going to take, and taking those breaks as you need them, but continue the work because it's important. We have people who are losing their lives, and that's not okay. And colonialism is a big concept, and I think it's creating an understanding that safety is a basic human right, that safety is something that we should all have, and we shouldn't have to leave our homes in fear, and to just be really aware and compassionate for the community, especially if they are in your meetings. If, they are feeling a lot right now, and to give them that compassion, give them that space, and just do the work, I think is something that I would say. But also just, take care of yourself.
Thank you, Shalene.
Thank you, Shay.
I think let's take a big collective deep breath, all of us listening. Whew. And I know there's 4 of us on the screen right now and we're talking, but feel free for the ones that are tuning in today, like you can express in the comment section, like express and get it out and, you know, have your own release and healing. That's what today is about. So Jean, how about you? What guidance or what would you tell young people out there that are feeling the anger, the frustration, the confusion? Like what guidance would you offer?
Well, first of all, I mean, they're feeling the anger, the guidance, and confusion is that you're okay. That those emotions and those feelings are real, and that and just to sit with them. And sometimes we become afraid of emotion, of anger, of fear, but actually use anger to motivate you in a positive way. Like the Dalai Lama said, like anger, there's wise anger and there's foolish anger. You know, how can we use this in a wise way? Ring a bell? But
That was the affirmation.
exactly.
Affirmation.
Exactly. Spirit talks to us in so many ways too, and be open and look at the world and walk in the world. Oftentimes we see so many people. This is a basic teaching in outdoor wilderness work is we walk through the woods like this, but walk through the forest looking like this. Take a look around you. Take a look around you. Sometimes if things get overbearing, go like this. And say, okay, and breathe. Take a break. You'll be okay. But it's but to those feelings are okay, those emotions are okay, and form a relationship with them, but don't let it overtake you. I love what Mama. You got to be proud of that little girl of yours, and and what you're saying about uh, learn about yourself. What is your DNA? What is your history, your heritage? Where is the dust of those who have been buried, of those old ancestors of yours? And who are they? What runs you? And who are you? Who are you in this your scheme of this world here? And choose your own education. We've got to educate ourselves. We've got to learn and educate ourselves. Learn about what's going on and form your own thoughts and those things. And sure, there's that, but at the same time, just breathe. Sometimes this energy just gets so overwhelming. It's one thing that I do. I'm a bike rider, and I'll just ride my bike so hard that I feel like I'm just gonna throw up sometimes. And but it's an energy I just need to release, because if I don't release it in that healthy way, it's going to come out in a very unhealthy way. Find a healthy release. And for these young ones out there too, and everybody out there, you know and you might feel overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, but I just want you, please, just to keep breathing. I don't want you to take your own breath away. The suicide rates right now are going sky high because people don't know what to do. The alcoholism, the addictions, the violence, the domestic violence, and all those are going so high because there's an energy and it's just gathering and we don't know what to do, and so we have to find it. And what I tell people is that negativity, it's on the media, it's on TV, in the news. You have to give yourself a break. And because those things will find you. But what we need to do is step outside, take a breath, all that negativity out there, that ugliness, but we have to find the beauty. We have to consciously look for the beauty. Just the simplicity of like a bird and the song of that bird, the simplicity of going outside and letting the sun shine on your face. Feel the wind, feel the rain, feel those things. You know, and what's your support? Find support. I have several support groups that I work with online. But not only that, I got to hand it to Ruby, man. She takes care of me. That's my partner. That's my wife, and she watches over me. She takes care of me. I'm grateful for that. You know, these are just a few things. I mean, there's so many things because it's such a huge thing. You know, we've like lived with it. We were born into this. You know, colonialism and and racism. You know, it's like all around us. You know, those are just a few things, but just keep it simple. Keep it simple. But our young ones, hang in there. You know, but educate yourself. Learn about it. Learn about it. Don't just read about it online. I mean, just do some research and really educate yourself. I mean, that's it for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Jean. And you're right. I'm super proud of Shalene and just for the amazing spirit that she is and all of the blessings that she brings to all of us. So, Tomas, how about you? I know we probably all forgot what the question was. All these comments are just like so awesome. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not a participant, I'm the facilitator. But the question was for our young people out there that may be feeling the same thing that we're feeling, anger and confusion. Like, what guidance, as Big Brother Tomas, as Uncle Tomas, like what guidance could you give our young people that might be tuning in today?
Well, off the bat, I think it's really important to acknowledge and recognize just the beauty of this conversation right now. Jillene and Jean, Shalene, I look up to you guys like so much, and just for us to share this space right now and have this conversation is really special to me. And I just had a long conversation with Shalene over the phone. It was like one of those late night ones, and I'm grateful for that. And it goes into what we're all talking about here is being compassionate and kind of making the time for each other. I know we have commitments and it's very important that we follow through with them, but even Shalene and I had to express that, like, we got some early mornings tomorrow, but right now we were speaking so from the heart, from a place that we continue talking, and for me, that's the beauty of creating spaces and this project like I-20SP is just the ability to jump into a conversation that has, it has a lot of depth, but it's not a judgmental place to speak. We're able to put our expressions out in a way that we know are going to be handled with care. So I think that's important. My words of encouragement or guidance as Big Brother Tomas, I guess, or Uncle Tomas, even Little Brother Tomas. I was always taught that, for younger, we still have a lot to give and to teach. So same, I always learn from those younger than me. I think to add on to what we have all been saying here, it's sometimes the simplicity of when we hear a joke, when we hear humor that is problematic. I know we're very witty and hilarious as Native people. I'm very proud of that. And at the same time, we need to use that compassion too. And when we hear things that aren't right, that we call it in a good way, and we talk about those things and why it's problematic. So that's just one simple thing, especially to the youth, because I remember growing up and we're just kicking it on the block, and it's really easy to let a joke slide that you might have heard from a bigger brother, bigger cousin, or you heard on TV, and you're just trying to fit in. You want to go with the flow and maybe make someone laugh. And when we come to realize, when we look at that compassion that Shay's talking about, and a lot of the jokes have darker tones underneath, and we really just need to be mindful of, you know, where those jokes are coming from. So kind of ask that question, yo, you know, where's this joke coming from? Like, what does it get into this situation right now? Secondly, I wanted to bring up, I was in Chicago. I lived there for 5 years, and I was very blessed to do a presentation with my partner, Sierra, at a store right on Michigan Avenue. And it was a pretty big presentation, and the room was filled. And I was just talking about my artistic journey as an artist. And then in the middle of the presentation, it was like a kind of almost Q&A section. A black brother raises his hand, and he just expressed, he's like, hey, bro, thank you for sharing your story. I just, and he worked for the company in the place where we were at. He said, I just want to let you know that I'm on my healing journey too. And I'm just really trying hard to bring good things into my life. And just hearing you even say that in this space is helping me. And then, yo, that choked me up. I was like, okay, let's take a moment real quick. I said, yes, there's a presentation going on. Yes, this is Michigan Ave, but I'm like, all the layers of it, like, this is native land and the histories of people of color in this city. Damn, this shit's heavy. Like, excuse my language. And I said, brother, the fact that you, as a, you know, as a male, is directing that energy towards me, a male, in this public space, and we are tearful, is progress. And I feel that. And I want it to be okay that we do this. Because it doesn't matter the name of the brand or the number of people in the audience, but we need to normalize spaces to heal in every place possible. Every place. And I encourage it. When we have these Zoom conversations, or we link up and we call our friends, our homies, we have a choice. Like, sometimes we don't want to bring, there's this idea, we don't want to bring people down. We don't want to talk about the hard stuff. On Zoom, like, we're you know, we're in the screen, and it's kind of like, it's different than interacting in person in some way. We're in a frame. We have a choice of what's in that frame. Like, I encourage our families and our friends to talk about these conversations, even during this time of quarantine, but to be mindful, to be compassionate, to allow for that kindness, so that we're not just haphazard about opening up a conversation and then leaving. You know, we have to prepare the space. We have to have that mindfulness, so that, like Jean was saying, we want people not to take their own breath. We don't want to trigger other things that might lead to a very hurtful outcome. So that's what I'd like to say is, like, yeah, it could be in a public space. It could be in just you and your homie, like I had with Shalene. Like, to have that conversation go on for hours, it helped me process things so much. And because we have built this relationship through the teachings of our people, of our Native people, and the structure of the Native Wellness Institute, we know that positive structures built from the ground up are possible. And that's what we can do with our justice system. That's what we could do with so many systems, is make sure that at the very root, it's the people first. It's the healing first. And that's what I'd like to say. Elakwa, for listening.
Awesome. Thank you, Tomas. So you all know that in my world, you know, healing is the answer to everything. And I'm always on the lookout, and I listen for that word even. And even in the last 5 years, certainly in the last 10 years, you're hearing that word more often. Even I've heard it on ESPN before, healing. So I listen for that word. And we have to like reframe how we think about that word, you know, because of trauma, you know, and the unspoken rules that we grow up with: don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, you know, we don't feel, right? And so then we make fun of people that do this kind of work. You know, we talk about that amongst ourselves. But healing was like, for our ancestors, was just a part of the everyday norm. Like, that healing was always about moving forward. And, you know, there's just so many thoughts going through my mind, and these power hours have become a part of my own self-care too. So I was thinking about, one time I was interviewing my grandma for a paper, and she talked about this one time when they went from the south end of our reservation to the north end by horse and wagon, because they were going to leave to go visit. And it took them 5 days and nights to go from the south end to the north end, camping along the way. When they got to the north end, the Indian agent told them, no, you can't leave today. And, you know, it's like, well, what did you do? I asked my grandma, well, what did you do? And she said, well, we turned around and we traveled 5 days back. Didn't you get mad? Like, weren't you mad? You know? And she laughed, and she said no. And so the other day, like a couple of weeks ago, we had a couple of different presentations. Theta spoke, and Sydney Brown spoke, and they talked about Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, and how he lived and studied amongst their people in the Blackfoot Confederacy. And they told a story about one day Maslow went into this trading post with these Blackfoot elders, and the trading post owners followed them all around the store, right? They got done and they left, and then Maslow said, aren't you mad? How could you let them treat you like that? You know, aren't you mad? And the elders laughed, and they said no, and that they weren't mad. And they explained to them that they pitied them in a way, because they didn't see themselves as a part of the circle, right? And to me, that just explains racism. And I was talking to a group of people at this public health gathering last fall, and without even hearing that story, I described that circle, and I described racism as people seeing themselves above the circle and not seeing themselves as a part of humanity. That's how I visualize racism, right? And yes, it's not my job to bring them back into that circle, but it is my job to continue living in this world by my values, right? By living in this world, by being a caring and loving person. And last night, I finally shut the TV off because we have riots 20 miles down the road here, and I turned the TV off, and I was just like, what are my values right now? How can I live my values right now? And so I did a Facebook post, and I put the moccasins I made your baby, and I made 2 other pairs. That's what I put on Facebook last night. And I said, every stitch that went into these was love. And I thought about these children, and I thought about their parents. And one is actually in the mail right now. They don't even know they're getting them yet. But that's what I posted on Facebook last night, because I wanted to send love out there, right? Like that's my value. And I know it's a traditional value, and that's what I wanted to send out to everyone. And that's why we wanted to gather here today, is to send that love out to everyone, like, and let everyone know, like, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We're gonna get through this. And I strongly, strongly believe that we're gonna be better because of it. We're going to be better because of it. And us, as we're on our land, right? Like, this is a time for us to stand up. This is a time for us to hold others up that are falling right now, right? Mm-hmm. This is our time to hold them and to circle them with that love, and to let everyone know that we're going to be okay, and to continue living by our values. You know, I have these earrings on, and I was going to wear this necklace, and it was all loud on the table, so I took it off. But see that bling on there, like, this is what today, like, we're shining that light, right? Like, we're shining that light out to everyone and sending that love out to everyone and letting everybody know, like, it's okay to feel all these things that we're feeling, and to know that sometimes we can just pause and just feel the prayers of our ancestors, to feel the prayers of people that are right now in real time, like praying for all of us. Like, we can stop and pause and like literally feel that. Whew. It's like another collective deep breath. Help us get through it. And I know it's 1 o'clock, and who cares? Time is like a social construct. We're just going to keep going for a little bit longer. And, thank you again for being here. And
Jillian, I just want to add on to that. It's like, you're saying that, what is it that gives you strength out there? What gives you strength? I mean, you said that. I mean, before I came out, I had to put on my vest. And these are my great-grandmother's buttons, because of what we're talking about and discussing. I was just going, I need strength. I'll put my vest on. That has the buttons of my great-grandmother, and that strength. And I know that she's always there. And I know that's whenever I need that, she's always there. And again, the strength, that strength of this is Indian land, that all this is going on, that's happening on, and that spirit is coming up through the land right now. And land remembers, land has memory. Mm. And that strength is coming from the land right now, and into those who need that strength to help, and to heal them as well. And so it's like that ancestral wisdom that's there, because this is Indian land, and with this, what we're doing now, to be vocal, to be able to talk about it. I've been writing a letter every day to the Today Show. Every day since this close down, this shutdown, about spiritual diversity and spiritual guidance, and getting our native spiritual guidance on these big channels, to go out there. It's not just about Christianity or Judaism or anything like that, but all those things. But this is Indian land. What better way than to hear encouragement from the indigenous people of this land that you're on across this nation? Mm-hmm. Because we love this land. We love our people. We love the people. And so I just wanted to share that. I just wanted to put that out there too.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. This morning, the state of Minnesota had a press conference, and the governor spoke, and the governor acknowledged the indigenous land that he was standing on. And the governor acknowledged the lasting impacts of historical trauma. I was just like, whoa, I was like blown away. And then he introduced the lieutenant governor, Peggy Flanagan, a Native woman who spoke her language and talked about her clan. And, I was like in tears. It was just like so powerful and so awesome, and I know that our healing is so important, because we have so much to give, and we have so much to offer the world, like we really do. And people are finally realizing that, right? Like they're not just appropriating our culture, but like they're genuinely like embracing like our teachings in a good way. And this week, when we talk about, well, what can we do? Like, what can we do to address racism and oppression? What can we do to do anti-racism and anti-oppression work? And yes, it's not on our shoulders, but we can still contribute in good ways. And this week, actually, we were in a training that we call Being an Ally in Indian Country. And we, on Zoom, virtual, we created this safe space enough for people to share things like this non-person of color, this white lady, shared that she said, I'm embarrassed to say that my father is a card-carrying KKK member. She goes, but something inside me like told me that's not right. She said, in my home today, hate is not allowed. And so we can think about what are things that we can do as Indigenous people to address racism and oppression? Shalene, I know you shared lots of things earlier. Do you have any further thoughts on that specifically?
Addressing it?
Yeah, like what can we do just as an individual? What can we do to address racism and oppression?
I think it goes back to what Tomas was saying. Like the other night, we hopped on a call with an intention of looking at one individual thing, and it went on for like 5 hours of just conversation. And then all of a sudden it was like 3 a.m. And I think something as simple as knowing the people that you can create that safe and brave space with and have these conversations. And as you build that space, maybe it's one person, maybe the next time you invite somebody, or your group of friends. I hear people like, I ask people sometimes like, oh, do you guys talk about this kind of stuff? And they're like, oh, what? No, like, no, that's weird. But why is it weird? Why do we build these social constructions around what's acceptable and not acceptable to talk about? I think what we're seeing now is that those norms need a hard shift, and I think we can do our own work to really understand what oppression is. So when we use these words, that we have an understanding and how it affects us as people of color, right? And how it and how we also uphold those systems. What is lateral oppression? What is our own internalized racism or prejudice against our own people? In this way, I think it's really important that when we're looking at, as people of color, looking at another community of color, looking at the Black community, it's almost easier to create understanding looking at them because it's other, it's different. But once we create that understanding, if that's the route you need to take, when you create that understanding, you turn that around and start understanding your own community and how this all plays out and how we are a part of lateral oppression, maybe looking at the really hard things. And it's not to say that any of us are bad people. We learn things from society. We learn things from media. We learn things from all aspects of this world. The news, if you watch the news, it's a sensational thing where, it makes you view the world that they want you to see. It makes it, and same with social media. Who do you follow? And who do you hold as value, right? Like, oh, this person is important, and so I'm going to read everything that they say, but also be aware that we need to do our own research and create that safe space to have these conversations, to listen. That's key. If you can't listen, these conversations are going to be really hard. And so taking the time to listen as well, to hear people out. People have a lot of feelings, and to navigate that. If it is anger, that it's their own trauma speaking, doesn't make them any less than, doesn't make any more more important. That there is no hierarchy in healing, that we're all in this together, and it's a journey for each individual. That there is no one right way to do it, and I think that's important. That find that one person, if it is just one person that you trust, and to start the conversation. Talking about racism can be a hard thing for some people. Talking about microaggressions and what this looks like for this world, and I invite the non-people of color community, the white community, to really engage in these conversations, to really do the work to create collective racial healing, to understand what it means to be an ally, and how you can be a better ally, and to know that it's not a contest, that I'm the best ally. It's not about you. It isn't. It's not about you, and to understand that this is a journey for all of us to take, and it's up to us to either begin that journey or continue that journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Shalene. This week in the training that we did in creating that safe space, we talked about all kinds of things and like in a really good way. And we talked about whiteness and the history of whiteness. We talked about, of course, we talked about racism and prejudice and bigotry, discrimination. We talked about white silence. We talked about white agility. We talked about white benefit. And we talked about some of the responses when we talk about some of these things. And one of the examples we gave was sometimes the conversation gets shut down because people cry or run out of the room. And then the next day, this white lady said, I wanted to leave the Zoom. I wanted to cry and leave the Zoom. But then you said, that's what we do to shut down the conversation. So I stayed. She said, and now here I am sharing about that. Like, that's the kind of space that we created. Like, we talked about the stuff in a good way, you know, and it was super awesome. So Jean, what are your thoughts about like what can we do as Indigenous people or the people listening in here? What can we do to address racism and oppression in our lives?
Well, part of it too is you got to pick your battles. Got to pick your battles, because there's so many things out there when we talk about racism, colonialism, prejudices, you know, and such. There's so much out there that I remember when I was younger, when I was the age of Tomas and Shalene, so I wanted just to heal the world, and I was doing everything, you know, and then I just got sick. I mean, not just sick, but pneumonia, down, just sick. Not just once, several times. And it was my elder who told me, he says, you need to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not taking care of yourself, what good are you going to be for other people? You know, so I really took that on. So we got to pick our battles, what it is, and then just be present. Be present to it. Be present. Have a presence to live it. I truly believe that we can heal a space just by our presence. The ability is to walk into a room, and I know that's happened because I've seen the elders of just our presence, and it's not about anger. Believe me, I want to just get so angry and just tell everyone just f off and this and that. Yeah, that's when I go ride my bike and I want to puke, and I cause myself ride so hard that I just want to puke when I feel like that, you know, because and then I just like, okay, whew. But it's the presence. Who are you? What's that internal strength that when you walk into the room, you know, and even when, you know, I've been faced, I've got stopped at the middle of the nighttime looking for my hotel, and I'm driving into the middle of the nighttime. It's midnight. I'm looking for my hotel, and I'm looking around this community that you send us to, Jillene, sometimes.
I know.
And I'm driving by myself, and I'm looking around this community. I'm going, this is a white community. I mean, you can just tell this is a white community. I'm a brown, long-haired Indian guy driving around back and forth, up and down the street, looking for my hotel. And I've been stopped. I've been stopped by the police, and they've asked me, so what are you here for? But then, okay, what's my presence? What's my presence at the time? What's my prayer at that moment? What do I need to do? How do I need to take care of myself? And sometimes just the battles is just that at that moment, you know. And so it's so work your presence. It's like an elder, you know, an elder walks into the room. Before they fill the room with that presence, first they fill that space. They fill this space, and they fill this space. How do you fill the space here and here in order to fill this space here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that's you know, just some of the things, you know, and you know, and like I told Tomas too before, it's like, and if you need to cry, man, cry. because I know after a good cry, it felt so much better. You know, just wipe the snot off my nose and stuff like that, and then carry on. And here we go. You
Yeah.
know, and as a man saying these things too to other men, to other human beings. I mean, there's so much more I just want to say, you know, and discuss. This is, you know, thank you for having this, opening this up for this discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Tomas, same question. If you remember what the question was.
I do remember what the question is. It's funny because I forget the second step of what Jean said is like first cry and then wipe the snot off. On one of these lives, I didn't wipe the snot off, and it was there for like a good 30 minutes. Hey, but if
I was going to give you a hint, Tomas.
I know, if it makes somebody laugh, it's all good. Jean expressed this as well earlier of acknowledging and honoring our matriarchs or our partners, you know, regardless of gender, but our partners, right? In a meeting this week, it was a business meeting, and it's been a hard week with, you know, the death of George Floyd, with the death of our other brothers and sisters this week. It's been hard, and I got tearful in a business meeting. In the middle of that, Sierra comes off of frame in the Zoom call and holds my hand and tells me it's okay. And I'm like, I'm just so blessed to have her in my life. And in a big part of this live, she was sitting here right next to me too, telling me it's okay. And it's important that I also, like Jean's saying, I take care of myself, but I have a little family to take care of too. So I want to make sure that I'm present there for my family, and that Sierra's needs and her need for expression are there too. But I also want her to know that I'm so grateful that she allows me to participate, or makes it easier for me to participate in these conversations because of what she is doing, taking care of our baby, you know, kind of like this teamwork that we have. It's a healthy collaboration. It's a healthy relationship. And so part of healing from racism is creating that space in our relations, even in the household, because it's great that Shay and I are real cool, or me and my brother Tech or Dash are real cool over the phone, but what about my own household too? Like, I need to make sure it's all good, that all that energy is good. And you know, there's gonna come a time too, Sierra has a lot to express. I hold baby, but I'm gonna be maybe holding baby a lot more. And as she's expressing herself and going through her healing journey, I need to step up and I need to be there for her as she has been there for me. So that, I think, is really key. And one thing I wanted to say about directly to the question, Jillene, about what we can do to heal from this racism as a community. We know that a lot of the narratives that are in the media and other places depict our Black brothers and sisters negatively. And it's completely painful, visceral, just difficult to watch, one after the other, you know, people's lives being taken away unnecessarily and in cold blood. I am asking us to share stories within, you know, when it feels right, but even within your families, of Black brothers and sisters in a good way, like the good memories, the way I talk about, oh, Uncle so-and-so, Auntie so-and-so, remember when she did that? Let's also share and honor the memories that our Black brothers and sisters create in our own lives. And I'm gonna do that right now in a very short family story that is so near and dear to my heart. I talked about Mr. Mitchell across the street. Well, next to us was Mr. and Mrs. Gunn, a Black couple. They had no kids. My parents moved to Phoenix in the 70s, and they moved to that neighborhood, and Mr. and Mrs. Gunn were right there. They built a relationship over time. Mr. and Mrs. Gunn fell in love with my family. We fell in love with them. They helped raise me. And Mr. Gunn passed away from prostate cancer. but he got to live to older age, and Mrs. Gunn survived him and was taking care of the household. She was like this, like dope, like just strong matriarch. And not that you have to have this to be a strong matriarch, but she slept with a 45 under her pillowcase. She was like, I'm gonna protect this household. I'm good. And we check in with her all the time. Well, she would share these stories with me about kind of like my childhood. And right before she got really ill, she lived to 93 years old. I felt compelled to film an interview with her, and I felt like this need to do it. Like, if I didn't do it, I feel like there was something I was not going to be able to share that I really wanted to share with my future generations and with my family. I know we have oral tradition and it's key. We don't have to rely on newer technologies, but I said, if I have this available to me, what can I do to honor Mrs. Gunn? She helped raise me. We had a peach tree in the front yard. She would make us jam from the peaches that we would grow and harvest in our front yard. And my grandmother, our matriarch on my mom's side, would meet with her at the fence and they would talk. My grandmother was forced to forget Zuni and English when she was a kid because she moved to Mexico and only spoke Spanish to Mrs. Gunn. Mrs. Gunn spoke no Spanish, but they had this relationship, this bond, this solidarity, indigenous and Black. And my grandma would make tamales for her, and Mrs. Gunn would make cakes for us, for our birthdays and for my grandma. Well, I went to go do the interview, and my grandmother had already passed away way before. And I went to go do the interview at Mrs. Gunn's house. And she was first saying, Tomas, she would call me Tommy actually. She's like, Tommy, this feels so funny, but I'm doing it because it's you. I just love you. What do you want me to talk about? And then I'll tell her like a question, and then she'll go, ooh, when you were 2 years old, you ran away from the house and you had the whole neighborhood chasing after you. She's like, we couldn't keep up with you. Like, she's like, me, old lady, trying to keep up. And she was just sharing all these stories, right? And I was able to document it. What I want to say here, and I want us to have this image in our mind too. Shortly after, within weeks, Mrs. Gunn passed away. On that side of the fence where she would meet with my grandmother had planted a row of roses. It was not exactly season yet for the roses to bloom, but on the side of Mrs. Gunn's house, after she passed, a single rose grew. It bloomed, and I felt like it bloomed for her.
Oh.
It bloomed from my family, from my grandma, for Mrs. Gunn, for her husband and their love. So how do we bloom for our Black brothers and sisters? How do we celebrate them in life and not just after death? What stories can we tell now of experiences that we share now, of joyful moments, or even solidarity as we're working together through something hard, but something that made us feel good? That's what I'd like to say. Let's balance these narratives out more.
Awesome.
It's a way to find the beauty, brother. Man, you must have went to a storytelling workshop to tell stories like that.
NWI, Gene Tagaban.
Thank you. Plus, he sounds like Obama.
Now, wait a minute there, Jillene.
Oh my goodness, so good.
Man, you got me. I want to tell a story now. Oh, hey, we can be here all day now. Do it to get started here.
That's another power hour. Related to that, thank you all for your beautiful sharings. And we will start to wrap it up if you're wondering how long we're going to go today.
Power day.
Power day, yeah. Well, related to that, back to this training that we just did. We just literally finished yesterday, the Being Ally in Indian Country training, and really addressing racism and oppression. And, you know, I told this story 3 times, and my colleagues were probably wondering, gee, she already said this. Well, you know, is she forgetting she already said it? But I was intentionally saying it because, you know, most everyone will not admit that they're a racist, right? I mean, that's part of the problem why racism keeps going. No one thinks they're a racist. And of course, there's different definitions of racism, and some people say, you know, what racism is white supremacy, and you know, all of this kind of stuff. I'm actually going to design a power hour later to go through all that. But one of the things I kept saying was talking about 3 colleagues and myself that were doing some anti-racism and anti-oppression work. And we were driving in a car for like 3 hours because we were in this remote part of Wyoming. And it was myself and a woman from the Yucatan. That's how she described herself. A Black woman and a white woman. It sounds like I'm telling a joke, but that was really it. We didn't walk into a bar. We were driving in a car and we were just visiting about all kinds of stuff. And my colleague, who's a white woman, was like asking us a question about who was a black sheep in your family. And then she said, hold on, let me stop and let me rephrase that. Okay, so we can think about when we use that word black, right? Someone got blacklisted, someone got blackballed. Are you the black sheep of the family? Like, we can think about how we use that word, right? And it's like black means bad, and that really does translate to how we see our black community, our black brothers and sisters, right? So I told that story 3 times during this training, not all in the same day because we had different segments of the training, but I said that over and over to show like how stealth-like racism is. Right? And when we repeat these things, how stealth-like it gets into our thoughts, and we don't even realize what we're saying, right? So I said that 3 times, and then this lady actually in the chat, she was commenting after the 3rd time I said the story. She commented and said, she said, I shared that story with my family, right? And we had like some deep thinking about this. And so that's why I'm sharing it here, right? It's like things that we can do to help. And then the last thing, and I'm going to pass it to Jean to close this out in a good way, is years ago, Jean and myself, Shalene, a bunch of us from the Native Wellness Institute were invited to Seattle for this event called Seeds of Compassion. And it was a week-long event, and people from all over the world came. Thousands and thousands of people came for all these different events all week. And one of the events was happening in the stadium where the Seahawks play. So like 50,000 people or 70,000, something like that, were going to be in there. And the Dalai Lama was going to be one of the speakers. And the Dalai Lama had requested for 1,000 drummers to lead the procession. So Japanese drummers and, you know, African drummers and indigenous drummers, like, oh, it was just like awesome, because he understood like the power of energy and the vibration that would bring. Well, he also wanted to meet with the indigenous people. And so there's like 200 of us, and we're in this room and we're waiting to meet the Dalai Lama. Well, these Secret Service people come in and they say, oh, well, we're sorry, the Dalai Lama won't be able to meet with you because he's on a conference call because the Chinese people are trying to kill his Tibetan people. Anyway, so everyone kind of left, and we were still standing there like waiting, and we were looking at our tickets like, oh, where's our seats at? And all of a sudden, the energy changed in that room. Like nobody said or did anything. I looked up and I'm looking around like what just happened, you know? And I'm looking around, and in walks the Dalai Lama. Like you could feel him before he even got into the room. And the best word that I can use to describe that experience was that I felt love. I felt love, like it just filled the room. It was profound, a profound experience for me. And I thought, wow, here is a man who just got off a call because his people are being murdered, and he can come in and just pour out love. It was palpable. And then he took the individual time to like bless everyone that was still in that room. We got to meet with him later that day as well. But it was profound because it makes me think about what do people feel when I enter a room, right? And it makes me, I know how powerful love is, right? And people that know me, I do love experiments. Like when I'm in public spaces, like in airports, I'll do these experiments where I'll like pour love onto someone, and I wait to see if they notice, right? And when I was watching these riots, I'm just like trying to pour love out of my heart and through my home and through my neighborhood, through my state, through my country, through around this whole globe and universe. I'm like trying to pour that out. And I know though that not everyone has the ability to receive that love because of what they hold in their heart. Like I know that, but it still doesn't stop me from sending that out. So I just wanted to share that as well. And I want to thank Shalene and Tomas and Jean for, just coming on at the last minute and putting this together and working through our own emotions as we're talking on this show. And I want to thank all of our viewers out there for being with us today. Like, you honor us with your presence, and we're grateful for that. And we want you to know that the Native Wellness Institute, this is what we're about. We're about helping our people to heal, all people. We know that the tools and the gifts that we have are for all human beings, and that comes from our traditional teachings. It's about humanity and seeing everyone in that circle. And we're here 7 days a week. Tomorrow is our prayer songs for many nations. And if you want to be uplifted and to feel that strength, tune in again tomorrow. And then Monday and Tuesday, Jean is leading several panels of men that also are dealing with racism and oppression, and how that spills out as violence, and how we can heal from that. That will be followed up with a women's panel, and Theta and her sister Lori are going to be leading that, really talking about the wellness of our women. On Thursday, Will and I are going to do a cooking show. We're looking forward to that. And then Friday, we end our week with a couple, Glenn and Yvette Pinkham, that are going to end our week with talking about traditional medicines. So we invite and welcome you, everyone, to come back. And I'm going to turn it over to my brother Gene, and he's just going to close us up in a good way today. And I hope you all just have an amazing day, to just get outside today and take that deep breath and, focus on your healing and well-being. Thank you.
So I was just pointing over to Shalene. Do you have something to say real quick? I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah. I was just going to say to make sure to take the opportunity to sign the petitions needed. Text Floyd to 55156 to be aware of the things that are happening. Donate to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the Reclaim the Block Fund, Black Visions Collective. There's all of these places that are doing really good work, and that is especially needed right now. So I just wanted to make sure that that was voiced at least.
Awesome. Thanks.
Right on.
Oh, I wanted to give high fives to each other.
You guys are on this side for me.
I know. I'm going to do this, though.
So right on. And again, I just want to acknowledge those allies out there, those who are working hard too to heal themselves. But our Black brothers and sisters, man, we're with you, and we love you, but mostly love yourselves. And so with this, I'm just gonna end with this song. It's a Sunrise song. And actually, no, I'm going to end with this one. Another one just is knocking on my door, just keeps knocking. And so, just because we're coming in there with strength. Let's be strong. Let's have strength. Let's be strength. And so, with that, away. Yeah. Healing. Gonna teach.
Awesome. Thank you, Jean. I forgot to show my shirt today. Heal our past, build our future. Love you guys. Love you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Bless.